Hi, gang, it's Adam.
And Patrick.
Coming up on today's episode, Chris Hemsworth's arms and pecs and abs and legs and butt and that face are all a part of our spoiler-free review of Marvel's Thor, Love and Thunder. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Why, if it isn't my good friend Patrick Penultimate Kazuki.
Oh, I know what that means, and it makes me very sad. I don't like starting the episode that way.
Uh-oh.
You know what you've done, Adam, God of having a sensible time, Hummel.
That should be my middle name. It's a hyphenate.
Nope, it's all one. It's all God of having a sensible time. Just all one word.
Like a hashtag.
Exactly that. Very that.
Patrick, how are you doing?
Oh, you know, I'm doing just fine. It's 189 million degrees here in Minneapolis. I went for a run this morning before the sun came up, and it was already like hot and muggy. So I was like, no, thank you. No, ma'am.
Why do you do it to yourself, Patrick?
Because I'm training for a marathon, because I hate myself, maybe? I don't really know.
Why do we do anything? Because we hate ourselves. That is the human condition.
Unless it involves candy and drinks, then it's because I love myself.
Truly, Patrick, and if I may take a moment, my dog is having a fit. Just know that she may be having a fit through this entire episode.
Penny, we've got 2 more episodes to go. Cool it.
She's real tore up about it, Patrick. She does not want this magic to end.
Reel it in, Penny. Adam, however are you?
I'm doing very well, Patrick. I'm very excited about today's episode. And it's not just the Zoloft. It's not just the Zoloft.
It's a little bit the Zoloft.
The Zoloft certainly helps and makes me feel pretty good, but also the fact that we have some really wonderful Disney content to deliver to our Tweedles.
We do? That's weird.
We do.
Very exciting. Adam, I have to say, I can't not talk about it. We have but one more episode after this one with you, and I'm distraught. I'm distraught about it, Adam.
Don't be distraught. Number one, Patrick, we're still going to be friends.
Okay.
Okay. Should we take this conversation offline?
No, let's have it right here, right now.
Okay, so we're still going to be friends, and, if you ever need anyone to fill in, I'm just going to hop on the Zoom, grab a mic, throw on a dance belt, and make a really excellent episode with you on the fly.
I may have to throw some money at you or hire someone on to do all of the technical stuff that I'm learning how to do that you were doing behind the scenes, because boy, oh boy, listen, I have some gifts. I have gifts to offer the world. In that gift basket is not technology and visual arts.
Well, here's what I'm going to say, Patrick. You are wildly talented. You've got a brain like no other brain out there in the world. You are going to easily take to every single technical element of the podcast, I have no doubt.
I appreciate your lies. I appreciate them.
Liza Minnelli has not entered the chat, Patrick. I speak the truth.
Well, I thank you, but I very much thank you for the past 198 episodes of you doing this, because it is not the easiest of tasks.
You will take to it like a duck to water. It'll come to you in a snap, I promise.
A legless duck, absolutely.
Well, Patrick, let's not dwell too much on the future, because we have to talk about the past. We have to talk about last week's episode, in which we gave our review of Pixar's Lightyear.
We sure did. We absolutely did. And we got some listener feedback on that episode. Let's dive right into it, shall we? With Matthew, who was a new Tweedle, I might add. Writing in from Instagram at, I'm just going to spell it, Hibdonde, Hibidande. Okay, great. I like that. Let us know how you pronounce that, because I'm going to say Hibidande. Matthew says, just listened to the latest episode. Here's my Lightyear review. Jumping right in with a Lightyear review. I'm glad it was on in the theaters, if only to provide a balance to Top Gun Maverick. The universe needed something to balance out that film's hyper-masculinity, and we have that in Lightyear. Tom Cruise definitely needed a Socks to help him cope better over the last 35 years. Socks was my favorite character, and I love that he helped Buzz learn how to understand himself and relate to people more. Even a robotic kitty picked up on his issues. We love to see increased self-awareness and personal growth. Thanks, Pixar. I was less concerned with the links to Toy Story, but I did wonder how they were planning to connect this to the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command film and series. I assumed that Disney was just jettisoning this and moving forward with a new canon. I fully expect a Disney Plus series might be in the future for our beloved new crew of Space Rangers, and I'm here for it, as long as it's centered on Socks, laughing crying emoji. Side note on face character Lightyear, wreck me Space Ranger Daddy. Oh boy. I hope Walt Disney World gets him before my trip in November. It sounds like you want to get him on your trip in November, Matthew.
Wow, Matthew. First of all, thank you for submitting that fantastic review. And yeah, I mean, would not a Disney Plus series be fantastic for these characters?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is an interesting thing because you do have to tease apart Buzz Lightyear of Star Command and this version of Lightyear, because Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, as I understand it, is still in the Toy Story realm. These are like stories that Andy made up in his head that we are seeing through the eyes of a child, whereas Lightyear is a movie that Andy saw. So it's you have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to make that leap.
You do indeed. And as for that poor cast member you are absolutely going to assault, should that face character be in Walt Disney World, I would say no touchy, hands off. You know, just like all looks, no touches.
Get consent and then send pictures. That's what I'll say.
Consider it Disney consent forms before meet and greets.
I like that. I think it's part of the new app. I think it's in there now.
Genie Plus indeed. We also heard from Mary Beth, who you can find on Instagram at HippiePippy78. Mary Beth says, "Hi friends, Lightyear was great. Totally agree that Socks was our comic relief, but let's talk about the goods. Darby, voiced by Dale Soules, was beyond gender. They never had a gendered pronoun. Also, it's like they plucked Dale's orange is the new black character and plopped them in Lightyear. Next, the lesbian kiss, not just a kiss, but a full loving relationship. What a great treat for Pride Month." Mary Beth goes on to say, "We also may need an episode about all the Brunos. Watching Ms. Marvel, and now we have what I think is the third Bruno, Luca, Encanto, and now Ms. Marvel. So many Brunos now, Patrick, in the Disney universe."
Turns out they do talk about Bruno.
That's all they do is talk about Bruno.
They can't be stopped from talking about Bruno.
You know, Patrick, if they had two more Brunos, you and your new co-hosts could do a Fab Five Brunos.
We're going to spin off a podcast called Bunch of Brunos.
I love it. That sounds great. Mary Beth, great points. Yeah, I did pick up on that when I was watching the movie, that they never mentioned Darby's gender. That was fantastic.
You know, they are starting to lean that way a little bit more and more. We'll talk about it a little bit more in our review of Thor, Love, and Thunder. But yeah, it's an interesting thing that they're exploring, and I'm very happy for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Moving on, we have Derek, who's writing in from Instagram at Boy Who Has Everything. And Derek says the best part in the film was the first 5 minutes. The rest had its ups and downs, but even the children in the theater were starting to get restless. The twist was an odd choice. I have a feeling they had some Zurg plans for a sequel, but I couldn't help but roll my eyes at the reveal. And lastly, Andy has interesting taste. If this was his all-time favorite film, you'd think he'd have a socks toy Good point. By far the best character, along with Buzz, confused emoji. I think Lightyear potentially would have been more interesting as a live-action film. Okay, love you. Bye.
Great point, Derek. And I saw Lightyear with my brother, and he also commented that he would have liked to have seen it as a live-action film as opposed to a CGI film.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm torn on that. I didn't see any problem with it. I didn't have any issues getting past all of that, what you're talking about. I don't know. And I feel like Lightyear, I don't know, Andy, it's not his favorite movie of all time now. It was just a very popular movie at that time. Think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when that came out. It was huge. Did it live on? Not so much. But, you know, it's just a blip in pop culture history for that character in Toy Story.
Some of us still appreciate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as the art house film it is, Patrick, to this very day.
Listen, I am a Donatello. Listen, I still like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but you know, it's one of those things. You just have to like take it as a pop culture reference at a moment in time in this kid's life, as opposed to putting too much weight behind it, I think.
You are so a Donatello. You're right.
I don't know if I'm right. It's just my opinion, but I'm right.
Well, thank you, Matthew, Mary Beth, and Derek for your feedback. And moving on, Patrick, we had a message from Shannon, who you can find on Instagram at Shannon Just Laughed. Shannon says, I have a very important request for the podcast, the new Villains Lair moment at Bay Lake Tower. Have you seen it? I just watched a video from the media night, and it's wildly disappointing. They really just hung a couple of photos, put out a coat rack, and called it a transformation. It's giving off-brand budget cuts, copyright infringement, a bigger flop than Enchantment even. Apparently the lounge is supposed to be ever evolving. Would love to hear your thoughts on its debut and where you hope it's heading. She says quick D maybe, but we'll talk about it now.
We will talk about it now. I have seen it, and yeah, you're right. It at least based on the pictures, and those were kind of opening day pictures or preview pictures of it. Very underwhelming. Very underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't normally watch vlogs, so Shannon, consider it the highest compliment that I actually took to a vlog to watch this. And I will say I'm happy to see some of the citizens of Hollywood getting some work. It was nice to see some familiar faces appearing to do some improvisation, but it was very kind of like the very lowest level of any kind of decor and theming. Like it just didn't quite live up to a full DVC experience that I would expect anyway. I mean, those people really shell out the money, so it seems like they would want to give them kind of a more premiere experience with actual, like, costumed characters for meet and greets.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And are these character actors there all the time, or was that for a press preview and it was just sort of a gimmick? I don't really know. I have to believe they're not going to be there all the time, because that lounge isn't going to be fully stocked at every moment of the day. You know what I mean? I'm interested to know what they were doing for the press preview and what they're paring it down to even more for just regular days.
That's a really good point, Patrick. I mean, I love an improvisational moment. The citizens of Hollywood were fantastic, but you weren't necessarily kind of forced to participate with the citizens of Hollywood. Whereas if this is an ongoing thing, like, are you really going to want like these people coming into the lounge and making you do something when you're trying to like eat and have a drink and relax?
Oh my gosh, if you're the only one there at like 2 p.m. and they're just like, so, what you eating? Super awkward.
For those that don't know, this conceit behind these actors is that they're looking for a Disney villain convention. Isn't that right? And they're kind of like in cosplay as villains.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't know if you remember when The Incredibles 2 came out and they had those random characters that were walking around the Magic Kingdom. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, totally. So, Shannon, I think you're absolutely right. It does seem like bare minimum of what they could do. And if it is ever evolving, let's hope they really kind of up the villain factor and really bring in some kind of tangible elements that people can really latch onto and make it a premiere experience.
Or at the very least, get some better like lighting in there that says this is a villain's lair, as opposed to this is a room with photos of villains in it.
Yeah, it's very like villains penthouse circa 1994.
In short, Yeah, we're in agreement with you. It's underwhelming, and this would not make me want to get a DVC.
No, it would not. But thank you for bringing it to our attention, Shannon. And we'd love to hear thoughts from other Tweedles, too, on it. Have you experienced it? Let us know your thoughts, please.
Absolutely. Speaking of wanting to know your thoughts, Adam, your thoughts on the just dropped trailer for Light and Magic.
Oh, Patrick, how much do we love a behind-the-scenes moment from anything under the Disney company umbrella? I mean, we had Behind the Attraction, which was fantastic. Hopefully we're getting more of that. We had the Imagineering story, which was also amazing. And now we get this great look behind Industrial Light and Magic, which a lot of the footage, and I'll admit, I haven't been combing the internet for footage of the making of Star Wars or Willow or things like that. But a lot of the footage looks brand new to me. So I'm super excited to watch this documentary series.
Yeah, for sure. Never before seen footage, I imagine, is what they're touting this as, and in a lot of the episodes, at least. Yeah, your path and my path don't often overlap each other on the same exact excitement for things, but when it comes to documentaries like this, you and I have the same exact excitement. I cannot wait. I'm probably going to sit down and watch them all in one sitting because I can't get enough of these. They're addicting to watch.
Yeah, totally. When I was a kid, and maybe you were the same way, Patrick, I know we have a number of friends who also were children who were fascinated with the making of movies. And I'd always buy coffee table books when there was a movie I was obsessed with because I had to know what kind of technology went into the production of the film. So these kind of documentaries are right up my alley, and I can't wait for Light and Magic. It premieres on Disney Plus as an original docuseries on July 27th. That's a week and a half away.
It sure is. You don't have to wait too much longer. Tweedles out there, let us know your thoughts. And once you start watching it, let us know what you think of it.
Please do just that. And Patrick, we're already knocking on the door of This Week in Disney History.
We are indeed. Open the door. It's me with some news for you, Adam. Let's start out with the birthday. 103 years ago, on July 19th, 1919, Dallas Raymond McKinnon, or Dal McKinnon, was born in La Grande, Oregon. You may not know the name, but you absolutely have heard his voice before. McKinnon lent his voice to many Disney parks attractions and Disney movies. Most of our Tweedles will recognize his voice as the safety announcement on Big Thunder Mountain. He also voiced Zeke in Country Bear Jamboree and Ben Franklin in The American Adventure. He also did voice work for Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, 101 Dalmatians, Mary Poppins, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And though this is not Disney, but it is worth noting, at least for me or people of a certain age, he also voiced both Gumby and Pokey in The Gumby Show from 1960 to 1967.
Thank you for your service for Gumby and Pokey. But man, what a workhorse for Disney.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an arrangement of voices he has at his in his pocket, I guess. I don't know what the phrase is, but man, to go from Ben Franklin to the Big Thunder Mountain guy to Gumby and Pokey, I mean, those are some very different voices.
Wouldn't it be weird to be a close relative of his, you had a relationship with him, and then every time you go on Big Thunder Mountain, you're like, Daddy or Grandpa?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I would 100% have him do my outgoing voicemail.
Yes, please. I want that.
Yes, please and thank you. Moving on to the next item in This Week in Disney History. 123 years ago, on July 21st, 1899, the newsboys in New York went on strike, refusing to distribute the newspapers of Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst. The strike went on for several days and changed the way newspapers compensated their labor force. And of course, these events went on to inspire the 1992 Disney movie Newsies and the Broadway show in 2011.
Can you just imagine living back in that time and seeing those hundreds of newsboys dancing in the streets of New York?
Singing songs, tearing newspapers apart and tap dancing on them. Absolutely. What a magical moment.
I like to think I would have joined them, Patrick. I have 2 years of tap in college under my belt, so I think I could have just joined right in.
Absolutely. Give me a barrel roll, won't you?
I will give you a barrel roll anytime you ask. I will.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's a sushi, isn't it? A barrel roll?
Or a hard candy. Yeah, one of the two.
Or, a position. I don't know. It could be
well. The barrel roll? Yes.
Yeah.
I believe it's page 142 of the Kama Sutra.
I'm thinking of the bear roll. Never mind.
Yes. Yes. It can be very tricky to get a bear to roll, but they will do it if they're in the right mood.
You gotta hold that salmon up, and then they'll make it happen.
Salmon in the bedroom? What?
A salmon roll, actually. It's got to be also sushi related.
Man, that just went in like 50 different directions, but I'm proud of us for managing to stay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's land that plane, shall we, and just crash into the news, I guess, right?
Yes, but before we do, we have the third of 3 very important special announcements. So we have the third co-host joining Gays Do the D.
That's right, third, and apparently very forgettable because I almost skipped right past it. So
It's not true. It's not true.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. No, you're right. Absolutely. I have to say, we've gotten some amazing feedback on our announcements of our other 2 co-hosts, which we've already announced, both Ryan and Kale. The Tweedles are loving this. They're very excited about this new energy coming in. They've gotten lots of love on the gram. So keep that love rolling in for my good friend. We've gone on several Disney trips together. I'm absolutely madly in love with him. And he already has a podcast you might know about. That's right. I'm talking about the incomparable JT Landry.
Some might call him a ringer. What with his own podcast, he's like bringing in a professional.
Yeah, some might call him the person who's going to replace both of us at some point.
It's good to plan for the legacy of GDTD.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm future planning here, everybody.
JT is an excellent choice, as is Ryan, as is Kale. I know all 3 of those guys are really going to bring something special to this podcast, so I cannot wait to hear each and every single episode that they're on.
Absolutely. And with that, please enjoy the dulcet tones of the intro for JT Landry. Spilling the tea from Tennessee. Everybody, join me in welcoming a JT.
Hello, Patrick. And GDTD listeners.
You seemed very annoyed by my introduction for you.
Not at all. Not at all. I was LOLing on the inside.
Okay, great. I like that. Just make sure you have no outward emotions here in the podcast, whatever you do. I feel like I want to make that a t-shirt for you. Spilling the tea from Tennessee.
Please do that.
Well, welcome back to the podcast, JT, because Tweedles will know that you were previously a co-host on an episode where we reviewed DuckTales' Treasure of the Lost Lamp.
That is right. Not my first time at this rodeo.
Not your first time at this rodeo. and I should say not your first time at any rodeo, because you were also the host of another podcast.
That is true. Me and my good gal pal Melanie host the Disney Buzz together.
I love the Disney Buzz. Tell our Tweedles who don't know what it is, just a little synopsis of what you do on that show.
Yeah, so we talk about all things Disney, accompanied by some light to moderate drinking. So we have a themed cocktail for every episode. And we call it Disney Buzz because we talk about the latest things happening with the Disney universe, and we drink while we talk.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's basically GDTD, only with a heterosexual woman instead of 2 gay men.
Correct. Correct.
I'm super into it. Yeah, I love your podcast. You and I became friends because of our coexistence in the Disney podcast world, and thus I really wanted you to be part of this new exploration of what GDTD will look like going forward.
That's right. And I am so incredibly honored that you asked me to do this. I have loved GDTD for a long time, even before you and I connected on social media. I was a big fan, listened to it every week. And it's just a huge honor and privilege to be part of this next phase of GDTD.
I love it. You do know we're not paying you, right? You don't have to compliment us too much.
Oh, listen, I've got to run, so
I've made a horrible mistake.
I've made a horrible mistake.
I love it. No, here's what I am excited about for you on the podcast. You have a deep love, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I gather from you, you have a deep love for sort of Disney nostalgia, very specifically live action Disney movies, which we historically don't cover a lot here on GDTD podcast. So I'm excited for you on that. But you are also a fan of like the Disney archives, right?
Yes, very much so. So, I've been a huge fan of Disney nostalgia. That's right. When I was a kid, I watched a lot of Disney Channel, and when I was a kid, the Disney Channel was very, very different, right? It was they were showing all of the Disney movies and TV shows from like the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And so that's kind of where my love for Disney started. My parents met in line for a Disney movie. They honeymooned at Disney World. I've been going to the Disney park since the late 80s. So yeah, the nostalgia is a big thing for me. And yes, big fan of the Disney archives, Disney history. Yeah, very much.
I love that. And you're a bit of a bookworm too, so I'm excited to hear your take on some of the Disney books that might be floating around out there.
Yes, I have a lot of Disney books behind me on my shelves.
I love it. We'll have to crack those books open, maybe for the first time. Who knows? They might all be a ruse behind you.
It's all for show.
So beyond all that, I'd love to know, what are you excited about, or what do you hope to sort of bring to the table as another host coming into Gaze Do the D?
That's a great question. Kind of a tough question. I think kind of some of the same things I talked about, just bringing some of that perspective of the Disney history and the nostalgia and some of the behind the scenes and background for certain things, history of attractions. I love to just talk about movies and behind the scenes of movies and how things connect and how certain movies being made today connect to Disney throughout the decades, and what's kind of laid the groundwork for some things. And yeah, I think that's a big part of and then I think just my passion for Disney and the love for this community and getting to be part of a bigger part of another community that I love and am a part of too. It's kind of combining both of those things, and it's very exciting.
Awesome. We are very excited to have you. I bet we watched the Disney Channel around the same time. Do you remember the TV show Avonlea? Remember when Avonlea was on the Disney Channel?
Listen, Avonlea was my jam, and I'm not ashamed to say it or talk about it.
Okay, great. We're not even going to tell our Tweedles what that is. A lot of our younger Tweedles are going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but look it up, folks. It's a great TV show.
Oh, it is one of the greatest television shows ever made.
It was like a Disney soap opera set in the time of Anne of Green Gables.
Yes.
And I was living for it. Gay Patrick was the gayest Patrick he could be.
Hetty King was a queen among queens. Hetty King was the original Shade Queen.
Oh my gosh,
right?
You're so right. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so this is just a little taste of what our Tweedles can expect here. Gaze to the D when JT's on an episode.
Buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up, folks. Well, thank you, JT, and we look forward to your next full episode on GDTD.
Thank you, Patrick, and I look forward to it as well.
Before I begin this story, I want everyone to know that I actually paid $1 to access this story.
Okay. All right. I hope it was worth it. We'll find out. I'll be the judge of that.
It really wasn't worth it, I gotta say.
Great. I'm glad you're reporting on it, though.
Regrets, Patrick. We all have regrets, don't we?
Nope, not I.
What a life you're living. No regrets.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Business Insider, to whom I paid that $1. Business Insider is reporting that former Disney CEO Bob Iger battled the company's board over succession and was unhappy about the transition of power to current Disney CEO Bob Chapek. According to a July 14th article that I paid $1 for, Iger thought he would spend his final year as Disney CEO on a global goodbye tour. Instead, according to several Disney sources and others familiar with Iger's thinking, that's really strange. Who would be like, I'm familiar with his thinking? The executive spent 2020 and 2021 watching COVID-19 devastate the company he led for 15 years and regretting what he has called one of his worst business decisions, the selection of Bob Chapek as his successor.
You know, I can relate to this with our 3 new hosts coming on, too.
2 former Disney executives told Insider that they are irritated at Iger for stepping down when he did. One close associate of Iger's told Insider it still pains him to see Chapek stripping Disney of all that he built. Iger, meanwhile, has continued to voice his regrets. He has said that he did not know that Chapek was such a, quote, novice when it came to handling complex issues like talent management and political battles, and said that Chapek was arrogant and uninterested in other people's opinions. Chapek defenders say he has made bold moves in restructuring Disney and led huge capital spending projects at the parks. And as we know, late last month, Disney's board extended Bob Chapek's contract as CEO for 3 years. Apparently, Iger and Chapek ran into each other at Allen and Company's Sun Valley Conference in Idaho last week. I mean, who didn't, Patrick? I saw you there. They exchanged greetings, but that was about it. So according to this article, Patrick, a very chilly relationship between Iger and Chapek, with Iger regretting his decision to give Bob Chapek the reins.
I mean, okay, questions. At the end of the day, was it really his decision or was it the board's decision to bring him on? I mean, maybe he had something to do with saying, yeah, I support this decision, or I don't know. I don't know how all of that works. This all seems very page 6. You know what I mean?
It does. It does. According to this article that I paid $1 for, Iger did have a number of candidates he thought would be an excellent fit for the role of CEO, but they actually left Disney prior to his tenure coming to an end. So it kind of gave the impression that, like, Chapek was kind of it. Like, Iger really wanted to handle the creative side of the business, and he wanted Chapek to handle more of the businessy side of the business. But because of COVID-19 and the quick transition, it kind of just all fell into Chapek's lap all at once.
Right. Yeah, it was a series of unfortunate events, I imagine. Yeah, I mean, listen, this doesn't read as anything that is maybe new information, but it does read as a little bit more hyperbole behind this, you know, the quote unquote scandal behind it all. I don't know. I think it seems like it's just people looking for a story.
Salacious. Yeah, that's why I wanted to report on it, Patrick, because we need more salacious content.
Right. This is going to be our clickbait online for sure. Disney recently announced the creation of a new program called the Disney Storytellers Fund at Howard University. The Storytellers Fund will create opportunities for historically underrepresented students to have careers as storytellers and innovators in media and entertainment. The new fund will provide stipends over a 5-year period for student projects focused on storytelling across a range of media, including, but not limited to, animation, digital design, gaming, journalism, live action, performing arts, product design, visual design, and virtual reality. Through the fund, Disney will also provide access to speakers, mentors, and internships for students in the program. A quote from Executive Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility at Disney, Jennifer Cohen: "The Disney Storytellers Fund at Howard will help us support students and the innovation and creativity that the university has cultivated for more than 150 years. We are excited to help the next generation of Black storytellers bring their ideas to life." In addition to this fund, Disney will also fund the development of a creative, collaborative space that will be housed inside the new Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts and the Kathy Hughes School of Communications at Howard University.
God, Patrick, I am going to miss this. I'm going to miss me bringing absolute garbage news to the news segment and you bringing something meaningful and lasting to the news segment.
Absolutely. We're the Fox News. We're fair and balanced. You know what I mean?
I have some media announcements for you, Patrick.
I love media announcements.
First up, Disney is bringing BTS to its streaming service, adding the world's biggest band to its roster of digital stars. In an announcement shared first with CNN Business on July 11th, Disney said that it would add new original shows featuring members of the South Korean pop group to Disney+. That will result in 5 new titles, and at least 2 of the new titles will be shot with the entire band, including a taped concert special in Los Angeles and a behind-the-scenes documentary series. Disney expects the latter to debut next year. One forthcoming title is a reality show that will see V, a BTS star, head on vacation with other Korean celebrities. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. The move shows how Disney is focusing on top-tier talent as it continues to go after Netflix and cash in on the recent wave of popularity surrounding Korean content and culture. Patrick, I'm not that familiar with BTS, but they seem wildly popular, so this makes total sense that Disney would just snatch them up.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge move on their part, for sure. This is going to generate a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, and a lot of potentially new viewers to Disney Plus, if that's where they're going to put it all.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of new subscribers, I'm sure. And it's interesting to see how Disney Plus is evolving, right? Because we're kind of moving away from all Disney all the time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, obviously. They're trying to kind of expand their portfolio with the streaming service. I think it's really smart for them to cater to a much broader audience.
100%. Yeah. And as long as they keep evolving their platform and making easy to use, then I'm fully on board with all of this.
Totes, Patrick. Totes. Moving on to more fresh Disney Plus content heading our way, Keanu Reeves will be hosting a docuseries for Disney Plus. The as-yet untitled 4-part docuseries will reportedly focus on Formula One managing director Ross Brawn, who in 2009 bought the Honda team, renamed it Brawn GP, and took it to 2 unprecedented championship victories. It's believed the show will air on Disney Plus in fall 2023, and Patrick, you've got to be excited for that. I know what a huge Formula One racing fan you are.
Couldn't be a bigger fan. Absolutely. You know, get those laps in, fellas and ladies.
That's what they say. Get the laps in. Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. That's a little lingo for all of you.
And finally, according to a July 14th Deadline exclusive, Dean Fleischer Camp has been tapped to direct the live-action adaptation of the classic animated pick, Lilo and Stitch, for Disney. Unknown at this time is whether the film will be theatrical or on Disney+. This marks Camp's first live-action film at a major studio following the recent release of his A24 critically acclaimed animated pick, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, that cute little shell, Patrick.
So adorable. I haven't seen it yet in theaters. I want to. I love that whole story franchise, though.
So cute. It seems like he would be an excellent fit for Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, though, that they're not proclaiming yet whether it's going to be a theatrical release or a Disney Plus release. I wonder if they're just waiting to see what it might look like before they make that decision.
That is interesting. I think we live in a time now where, like, they can make that call later and later. Like, you know how it was just inconceivable that a feature film would ever be released on TV when we were growing up. But now we live in an age where it's like it could very well end up on either the big screen or the little screen.
I'm interested to know what those contracts look like then. You know, we don't want another Scarlett Johansson situation where they were promised one thing and got another thing and then left all that hullabaloo. So I wonder how all that works.
Don't we want another Scarlett Johansson situation? I mean, it's more salacious news, Patrick. We want more salacious news.
That's true. We have to keep our Fox and the Hound news fair and balanced.
As we mentioned at the top of the episode, Patrick, I have but one more episode as an official GDTD co-host. But before I depart, we have but one more movie review, a spoiler-free movie review to share. And oh my God, Patrick, am I glad that it stars the love of my life, my soulmate, my partner, my husband, Chris Hemsworth.
Absolutely. It was meant to be, I feel like. The stars and the gods have aligned to give you this parting gift.
And so special of him to include a message in the credits. For me, did you see that? Did you see that message?
Just for you, huh? Just for you.
Dedicated to me, the film. And Chris, baby, all I can say is thank you, I love you.
Oh, your love is so pure. It's so lovely to see. It's just a gift for all of us, really.
Meant to be. As I said, this is our spoiler-free review. Yes, we're talking about Thor, Love and Thunder, the latest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe slate of films. You can only see it in the theaters as of this recording, so be sure to head to the theaters and check it out if you like. What does a spoiler-free review mean? It means that we won't be ruining any major plot points in the film, that we may be giving away some smaller details that will not ruin your enjoyment of the movie.
Absolutely. We're not going to wreck it by telling you who dies, really, in this movie. Just tragically, you know, who gets married, whose lives are changed forever. We're not going to do that to you this time around.
There's a very interesting plot turn regarding an IRS tax audit. Unexpected and thrilling, I would say. But we won't tell you who the IRS audits. We simply won't do that.
No, we sure won't. So, okay, Adam, we both saw this in the movie theater. Did you see it recently, or has it been a week since you watched it?
It hasn't even been 24 hours, Patrick.
Oh, you just watched it. Now, I watched it when it first came out, so I had some time to sit on the Thor of it all, if you will.
I'd like to sit on the Thor of it all.
Fair enough. Okay, so your thoughts are fresher than mine are right now. Do we want to get into just initial thoughts right now, or do we want to get into a couple of stats? How do you want to approach this? This is really your episode, Adam, I would say.
I'm the bride, huh?
Yes, indeed.
Well, let's start with a brief plot summary, shall we?
I love that journey for us. Hit me with that plot, Adam. That sounds weird.
Thor's retirement is interrupted by a galactic killer known as Gore the God Butcher, who seeks the extinction of the gods. To combat the threat, Thor lists the help of King Valkyrie, Korg, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, who, to Thor's surprise, inexplicably wields his magical hammer, Mjolnir, as the mighty Thor. Together they embark upon a harrowing cosmic adventure to uncover the mystery of the God Butcher's vengeance and stop him before it's too late.
What a great recap.
More accurate than most we've read on this podcast, don't you feel? I feel like that pretty much sums up the movie very well without spoiling anything.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that was pretty accurate. A very interesting plot, I thought, for a Thor movie.
It was indeed. It kind of covered several different levels, so many layers, Patrick, just like an onion, peeling back a fine onion. And as with Thor Ragnarok, led by director Taika Waititi, so you know it was going to be kooky as hell.
Yes, Taika Waititi. This is basically a Taika Waititi production, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Directs in it. He voices Korg in the film. It has his creativity sprinkled all throughout the movie.
100%. This is one of those films, if you're not a fan of the director and their style, I imagine this is not going to be a movie for you, because this was very much a Taika Waititi film, who is known for, well, Thor Ragnarok, Jojo Rabbit, What We Do in the Shadows. He's currently working on the Tower of Terror movie and an untitled Star Wars movie as well.
A lot on his plate, Patrick.
A lot on his plate, but he always seems so, I've seen him in a lot of interviews, he just seems so cool and collected and casual. I feel like that is a person who I want to sit down and have a drink with and figure out what's going on there, because the creativity is just coming out of his ears.
He's creative, he's smart, he's charming, he's handsome. I would have a drink with him.
Absolutely, and talented as well. So funny as a voice actor.
And his sense of humor is right up my alley, Patrick. I like that kind of very quirky take on the MCU. And he really seems to have found his sweet spot as a director in this franchise. Like, I just feel like the pairing of subject and director work wonderfully well together.
Yeah, he does a really good job of like mixing quirky with smart humor, but also a little bit college humor as well. It's just a nice mix, and he's rapid fire too. There's never really like a lull in his movies. When there is sort of like a slower moment, it's always got a little height to it as well.
Yeah, and you've already mentioned how kind of varied the plot was. There are some very, very serious elements to this story as well that I thought were just so effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into a couple of statistics I want to talk about, because I think they're kind of interesting. Now, this movie had a budget of $250 million. It made $180 million domestically and $382 million worldwide so far, with a $144 million opening weekend. So it's doing quite well. Not as well as a lot of other Avengers MCU movies. However, you sort of have to balance that out with, there's still a lot of people not comfortable going to theaters. Yeah. It's hard to market right now. How do you place it? It's got a lot to compete with. Summer movies are tough. So that's kind of an interesting thing to look at. It also has a 76% score right now on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not super high. But then on the flip side of that, it has a 79% audience score, which is quite high, I would say.
I didn't know either of those scores, and it's actually kind of surprising to me because I so thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I thought, honestly, it was the best Marvel film since Endgame.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that is a big, bold statement.
It really is. Yeah, I thought the mixture of humor and heart and a hunk for the lead, I just thought it was so well composed. And then on top of that, and I know we'll get into this when we talk about the cast, but a really dynamic villain that you felt for.
Yes, absolutely, which we have come to expect now from the Thor franchise out of the MCU, is really thoughtful yet sort of sympathetic, larger-than-life villains.
Yeah, and we're always given a backstory for them that's very compelling. Like, I feel like a lot of times, and maybe this is just me not remembering the full spectrum of villains that we've seen from Marvel, but I never really get as much detail or backstory as I need to feel any kind of connection to them, or to make them so dynamic that I'm kind of rooting for them in a kind of a weird way. But we do get that with Gore the God Butcher.
Yeah, for sure. I'm kind of torn on villains. I both, on one hand, I love just a villain who's a villain, and I don't care why they're a villain. If you're a bad guy, you're a bad guy, and I sort of love that as well. But I also, on the flip side, with this sort of a villain, I really enjoyed sort of the depth of it all as well. He was definitely not just someone who we needed to destroy, he was someone we needed to understand as well.
You've said that before on the podcast, and it's so smart. You're right about that. You know, sometimes it's nice just to have this really kind of bawdy, brash, bigger-than-life villain, and then sometimes you do want a more kind of like, I don't know if grounded's the word, but you definitely want someone you can latch on to more and have more of like compassion for as their story unfolds.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's why maybe this is going off on a tangent here, but why Maleficent wasn't as successful for me, because I kind of didn't care about her backstory. I just sort of wanted her to be a villain and call it a day.
You're talking about the live action movies?
I am, yes.
Yeah, totally. Because in the animated film, you're like, love her, totally do not need more than we're given. Like, I just love that she's like this drag queen who is enacting revenge. And in the live action movies, it was like too much information.
For sure, yeah. They almost were like, well, she's not really a villain then. It's like, no. I need her to be a villain. Fine, tell me how she got there, but just make her be a villain.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we talked about Taika. Let's talk about the writers. Yes. Taika was also a writer, obviously, on this project, and he was joined by Jennifer Caton Robinson.
Yes, indeed. Kind of a relatively, I always hate saying this because it sort of downplays the work that they've done before, but an arguably greener writer of the two.
And we've said this before on the podcast too, you know, Disney, Marvel, Pixar, they all love to bring in more established directors, writers, creative leads, and they always love to have an up-and-coming creative on the team as well. They're kind of fostering these relationships, helping them kind of reach their pinnacle as creative artists.
Right, absolutely. It should be noted that Jennifer was a producer for the Hawkeye series as well, so I imagine that was sort of her into this franchise.
Totally. Already kind of embedded into Marvel, so she knows that canon and knows the history behind the company and the cinematic history of Marvel Studios.
Very that. So it was kind of just the two of them working on this film, with Taika Waititi being sort of the head writer and also the director, sort of just helming the entire ship of this movie.
That's right. And boy, was it successful, in my opinion. I just thought visually, artistically, there were so many different elements that came into play in this movie. And, you know, oftentimes you can say, well, the script was really great, the director was really great, the visuals were great, but this movie served up so many different concepts almost of how a superhero story could be told. There's some very grounded elements behind it. And then there are some very striking visual moments. If you've seen the movie, you know there's an extended sequence that's done almost entirely in black and white. And boy, is that just like so visually appealing.
Yeah, the cinematography behind this film was absolutely beautiful. And I'll say, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but my stance on Thor is he's not my favorite Marvel character, but the franchise itself is my favorite series of Marvel films.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. And I think especially in this movie, you know, as charming as Chris Hemsworth is and as dynamic as the character is, he is the lead character. And therefore, you know, he gets his jokes in. But again, we're seeing him surrounded by these really dynamic kind of supporting roles and really colorful characters that help kind of drive the story forward.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I would actually argue that Thor is a very colorful character, too. I thought that they all mixed together really well. They all had their comedy moments. They all had their dramatic moments. I don't know, for me, if this was an instance in which the lead character is sort of the straight man. I kind of feel him being like almost the head knucklehead in this movie, if that makes sense.
Oh, great. I misunderstood totally what you said then. I agree. You know, I think that he is kind of like the doofy lead, essentially. You know, he's not really fully aware of himself. In fact, that's brought up in the film. Like, he's been around for thousands of years as a god, but yet he truly doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I just meant by that, it's just like in general, he's not my favorite Marvel character, if that makes sense. But the franchise and the storytelling behind the Thor movies is absolutely my favorite genre of telling a superhero story.
Totally got it. Yeah. And I think, you know, as compared to our previous Marvel review, which was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, this film has the exact right tone and what we were looking for in Doctor Strange, that kind of wink to the audience at any given moment.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I know that they're both just very different ways of telling stories, and one went off in a very different direction. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are going, well, Doctor Strange, that storytelling is for me, for sure. And interestingly, Doctor Strange is one of my favorite Marvel characters, but that franchise is so far one of my least favorite franchises.
Read it to filth, Patrick. Just pop off right now.
Listen, it's a fine movie, just not my style, not my decision on a menu.
Totally agree. Yeah. Well, should we talk about some of the actors we saw in this film, Patrick? Who did we love who spoke to us. I mean, for me, it's kind of boring. I'm giving a rave, I know, but I was so charmed by, honestly, everyone who was in the film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think there was anybody who dropped the ball in this movie, and it's a star-studded cast of people who were absolutely cast in the correct roles.
So fun to see Natalie Portman return as Jane Foster, and then no secret, it's all over the advertising campaigns, but she does appear as the Mighty Thor as well. And how we learn she becomes the Mighty Thor, that's really the really fun twist, and also the really kind of heart-wrenching aspect behind the story of this movie.
For sure, yeah. I don't know if I would call it a fun twist, but it was definitely a major twist, absolutely. And she does such a great job in this movie. I am a huge fan, always have been a huge fan of Natalie Portman. Interestingly, for this movie, it was weird, I don't know what the right word is for this, to watch her, because she is now, she's a woman of our age, I would say. And in this movie, she and the makeup artist did not try to make her look younger or try to Hollywoodize her. She played the age that she is, and I appreciated that so much. It was so weird to watch because we're so used to seeing her in these very young ingenue roles.
Yeah.
And to put her in this, not that she's not an ingenue, because she is stunning to look at, but to watch her just play a woman of her age unapologetically was wonderful to see.
Yeah. Also, she's so physically diminutive in real life that it was fun to see her play this big dynamic character when she is the Mighty Thor. And, aside from her being so talented and so engaging on screen, her arms, man, for a vegan, how did she get those arms?
Yeah, she had those Michelle Obama arms. They were amazing. I imagine she had to work very hard because she is a petite, small woman, too. And for anyone to gain that kind of muscle is a feat unto itself.
Yeah, I was wondering, too, if they had her, standing on apple boxes during the movie when she was the Mighty Thor, because she did seem, taller than Tessa Thompson, and it seemed like they were playing with her scale. So when she was Jane, she was smaller, and more diminutive. And then when she was the Mighty Thor, she just seemed physically bigger. I think they were kind of teasing us or, fooling around with that aspect of her physicality.
Either way, she looked amazing, absolutely amazing, and she did such a good job with the Mighty Thor, such a great character, and she was perfect in the role.
We also talked about Gore, the villain in the movie, played by Christian Bale. Also tied to Newsies, Patrick, this episode has come full circle. He does not sing and he does not dance in this movie, and yet he plays a really wonderful villain, giving Voldemort a run for his money.
I thought that too, and that here's what I'll say. I really liked the performance. I really liked this villain. One of the scarier villains, I would say, in the MCU. He does a wonderful job. You almost don't know it's him for much of the movie, and then you go, oh my gosh, that's Christian Bale. He does a great job. But yeah, for some reason, maybe it was the makeup department. I don't know what it was. And it's a tribute to what the character actually kind of looked like in the comic books as well. And unfortunately, it looks way too much like Voldemort for me.
Bald, super white guy,
But even with the flattened face and the features and everything, it was very Voldemort-esque, and that was hard for me to dismiss, I guess.
Yeah, he had the pointy teeth too.
Yeah, it all kind of bled into each other. I wish there was just a little bit of a way for them to have veered away from that look. I don't know. I guess it was just an unfortunate happenstance that the two characters do happen to look alike.
Yeah, totally get that. Totally understand that. But like you said, his performance is so mesmerizing, and he does disappear into that character. And, apart from the physical similarities, really the characters in action and in their villainry are quite different.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting, I read he almost didn't do this movie. He almost turned it down because he was kind of done doing superhero movies after Batman.
Yeah.
He had said he wasn't interested in redoing a franchise like this, but his children were the ones who convinced him to do it. So he did this movie for his kids.
Well, that's a stand-up dad right there, I gotta say. He was really great. And as I've already alluded to, his backstory is so moving and really justifies why the character behaves the way he does. And, there is that element where a small part of you, is kind of rooting for him. You want to see this guy enact the revenge that he feels he's deserved.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know if I would say I was rooting for the character so much as I a little bit empathized with him and was invested in the character. I guess that's how I would put it. And I really enjoyed watching him when he was on screen.
Also, someone we've already mentioned, King Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson. Always fantastic.
Always fantastic. I'm an enormous fan of Tessa Thompson. I would watch her eat cereal, and I have, frankly. I have cameras all over this country, but she's fantastic. And this is what I was alluding to kind of earlier in the episode of King Valkyrie. I'm interested to know, because they didn't so much make a point of it, but they do title this character King Valkyrie, and I'm wondering if this is them giving us sort of a gender nonconforming character.
Well, she is bisexual.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And takes the title of king, though. You know, as we traditionally know, king is sort of a word reserved for masculine or male, and this character holds the title of king and doesn't opt for queen instead. And so I'm just interested in that. I'm interested if that's a choice, just because that's what it was in the comic books and they didn't want to veer from that, or if they're making a decision based on, we are making this character gender non-binary.
I also think what might play into it a little bit is just the fact that Valkyrie is so dynamic and kind of thinks so highly of herself that, you know, she would kind of be like, well, king is clearly the more powerful of king and queen, so I'm taking king. You know, king is me, I'm a king.
Fair enough. I would argue that a queen is just as powerful, if not more powerful, though.
I guess I mean historically. Like if you're thinking Middle Ages, not obviously Queen Elizabeth.
Fair enough. Yeah, hard to know. I would like to know more about that and what the decision was behind it. And, or maybe we just don't need to know. Maybe it's not for us to know or care about, just to know that this character is whoever they want to be, whenever they want to be it. And I am absolutely for that.
I could have used more of her in this film. I understand why, you know, it's not necessarily her story to tell. I'm glad she was included in on the journey. But I thought what was really so strong was they really took time with her when she's talking to Korg when they're traveling to battle Gore. You know, she really took the time, or maybe we really took the time as an audience, or Taika took the time to really kind of invest in her sharing her sexuality with us. You know, like there wasn't this kind of like pussyfooting around it. Like I felt like for the first time in a Marvel film, or really in any kind of franchise in Disney, we really kind of sat with the character for a moment and got a sense of who they were when it came to who they were attracted to and kind of what they were all about when it comes to their sexuality.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that this is probably, strangely enough, for a Thor movie, one of the most inclusive movies in the MCU I've ever seen. And when I say inclusive, I mean gender inclusive. Yeah. I mean sexually inclusive. I mean, you know, racially inclusive. It's all there, and it's so interesting. And they take the time with it, but they don't make it a big deal at all. They just sort of are like, these are the characters. Here's what we're talking about. We're all still friends. Nobody cares. This is who we are. And then you get to live on with them from that on. You get the information and move forward. And I loved that.
Totally. This wasn't about a scene where she was kissing a woman. This was about a scene where she was talking and sharing part of her story. Like, you know, it just something that we don't normally see, as opposed to like a hug or like a kiss between, you know, two same-sex characters. Like this was a great kind of like monologue she had about who she really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much that. And then we also get, I have to talk about this since we're talking about the inclusivity of it all. There's this great part, and I think we can talk about this, but it's not ruining it at all. There's an interesting dialogue of Natalie Portman's character making a point to say, my name is not Lady Thor. My name is Mighty Thor, because throughout history, a lot of, you know, cis white men have just called her Lady Thor kind of flippantly, right? Just saying, oh, she's the female version of Thor. Yeah. No. She's her own character, and she has her own name and her own title, so use it, please. And I love that. I loved that moment.
Yeah, so successfully done, too. Like, not one of those heavy-handed moments, you know, but it was one of those great, like, pointed moments in the film, and then she just kicked ass.
Yeah, yeah. It was almost as though she like looked directly into the screen, into the eyes of all of the ignorant people out there who can't be bothered to learn her name. It's like when someone dismisses a woman and doesn't use her by the name doctor, which she also is in the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Using that title is important, and we need to start doing that more often.
Yeah, they did a great job of breaking the kind of superhero tropes that we normally see in films and really playing around with who was the hero throughout the film. Like, it changed frequently and was completely unrelated to gender, sexuality. You know, there were a ton of heroes in this movie, and they all fell into a complete spectrum of different personalities and personas and sexualities and proclivities and all that.
Which is great, and which it makes just absolute sense when you're talking about a franchise that spans universes and spans worlds and spans all of this. It's like, of course, there's all of these different spectrums, and let's bring them in, as many as we can, because, you know, we're not a small world, we're not a small universe, and we're not all one thing, obviously.
Yeah, Marvel still has a problem with that. And like, even thinking about franchises like Star Wars, they really have a problem with this. So it's wonderful to see this franchise, the Thor franchise, really embracing kind of the queerness of the universe.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of the queerness of the universe, should we talk about Zeus maybe a little bit?
Let's talk about Zeus.
An unexpected role. I didn't know he was in this movie. Russell Crowe plays Zeus in the movie, which is where I think Disney is going to have a little bit of explaining to do on its hands in separating the Zeus of the MCU from Zeus from the animation, the Disney animated studios.
Well, I mean, they've already dipped their full foot into the Buzz Lightyear, two different Buzz Lightyear situations. So I think we're going to be okay with it, I think.
But I mean, at least that's still in the Pixar universe. I mean, it's not, they're all still one thing. You know, this is two absolutely different characters who are the actual same character.
Are they, Patrick? Are they?
Yeah, who knows? Remains to be seen.
Yeah, Russell Crowe making a pop-up appearance in this film, and really entertaining, I thought. I was thoroughly enjoying his performance, and I'm not necessarily like a Russell Crowe stan or anything. Like, I don't know, there's just like strong kind of like masculine vibes there that I don't always normally agree with. I don't know how to describe it. I just have never really keyed into him as like one of my fave actors, but he was making me laugh.
Yeah, for sure. I thought he was wonderful in this movie. I always like him in movies. I've never seen him and went, I'm kind of meh on Russell Crowe. But I see what you're saying. I don't always think of him, though, when I'm like, oh, who would I cast in this? Russell Crowe, obviously. But he was a great choice for whatever reason it was. It just worked out really well because I don't know, he wasn't like, he's not an overly masculine looking man, but he knows how to play an arrogant man really well.
Oh, I see. I think of him as like very masculine looking, like a big kind of beefy, like, you know, guy. You know, like me, Patrick.
Very that, 100% that.
Yeah, but he was fantastic as Zeus, and an interesting kind of, I guess I'll say, opportunity there. Like, there's the potential for more, and so it'll be interesting to see if this character returns or how this is going to play out. Very that. I'm interested in that whole land that they created as well. I want to like watch the movie again and pause it and see some things that I didn't see because they skipped through a lot of it, and there's a lot to see in that whole world. Fantastically beautiful, that city they visit. That whole sequence was just gorgeous. And can we talk about the moment that happens in that city, in that scene, Patrick? I think us being a gay Disney podcast, we must talk about that moment, Adam. For the first time in Marvel Cinematic history, right? I think, maybe? Maybe. I mean, at least this much of it, yes. We got a full backside shot of Thor. He just got naked. He did. We saw his love and his thunder, for sure. And I have to say, Patrick, Matthew chose the exact wrong time to run to the restroom because he missed that sequence. And I could not believe the beauty I beheld in that moment. Wow.
Yeah, he's a strong man, that's for sure. I was also reading that this is the biggest he's ever been for this franchise for playing Thor this time around. He gained the most amount of muscle weight, and you can absolutely tell. I will say this: listen, who am I to say not for me? But like, this is not my attraction necessarily. Right. Like, I can absolutely agree that is a specimen of a human being for sure, and well done to you and to your trainer. But it's not my kind of guy, I would say.
Totally get it. And normally I'm not attracted to like the overly muscled, like giant whatever, but
yeah,
I'm going to make an exception in this case. I'm going to allow it, Patrick.
Well, how generous of you. How very generous of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. He looks fantastic. He is huge. I mean, his arms are massive in this movie. Looks fantastic. Plays the part perfectly. Chris Hemsworth, I love you. I think I've already said that. I'll move on.
And we don't have to move on, actually, because we haven't really talked about Chris Hemsworth much yet, and we failed to do that with Chris Evans last time in Lightyear. So we should give him his due. I really think I'm always surprised by how talented he is, if that makes sense. I don't know what it is. When I look at him, I always go, he's great to look at, but what else is there? But then I see him, and I am 100% on board. I think he's a wonderful performer.
He's a comedian, he really is a comedian. Like, he is so successful at pulling off those very, very funny moments with just like the slightest look or, the weirdest little action. Like, he totally gets the quirkiness of that character.
He's definitely somebody who has spent a lot of time in the mirror, because he knows exactly what he can do with just like the ever so slight grin or just a wink of the eye or something. He knows exactly how to emote what is needed for that scene, comically or emotionally. And it's really I don't know, it's hard to say he's just a comedian, because he's doing some wonderful acting in this movie.
If I looked like him, I would spend a lot of time in the mirror too.
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. There are no mirrors in my home.
No, he was fantastic as always, and it's just such a treat to watch him have so much fun on screen. Like, it just seems like he's having a blast.
Absolutely, for sure. And speaking of fun, we may as well talk about the acting chops, the voice acting chops anyways, of Taika Waititi, who we've talked about a lot already in this episode, playing Korg, resuming, I guess, the role of Korg in the MCU. Such a funny character. What a great companion to any movie he's in, actually. Totally
dry, totally throwaway lines. Like, there are moments where he just kind of like says something quietly in the background and you just catch it in an instant, and it's so funny.
He's the perfect like improv partner, because his character is always, yes, and also here's a banana or whatever. It's just like so funny. He goes along with everything. And I always wonder, like, is this fully scripted, or do they do a bunch of different vocal takes of his? Because they're always super funny.
And it's just fun to see this kind of hulking rock-like figure, and then this kind of like tiny little accent comes out of his mouth, like he's just so endearing and sweet despite the fact that he's massive.
Yeah, the perfect gentle giant.
Again, just like me, Patrick.
Very that. Way to bring it right back around to you again. This is your episode after all.
So that's kind of like the main players in the film, Patrick, but there were a number of other actors and characters featured in the film. We got to see the Guardians of the Galaxy at the opening of the movie.
Yeah, that was fun to see. A nice little glimpse into the Guardians, and hopefully we're going to get another movie out of them. I believe we are. I know we're going to get that Christmas special that we've been teased with for a long time. So yeah, it was fun to see them. It was great to just get that nice little moment from them to remind us that they're still around in the MCU.
Also, I want to say, I know it's two different franchises within the MCU franchise, but this movie might be giving Guardians a run for their money. Like, the Guardians seem so quirky and funny, but this movie really delivered on so many fronts. So, it kind of upped the game in terms of like being a comedic superhero movie. And then obviously on top of that, there were also dramatic moments. There was a lot going on. That's what I'm trying to say by rambling, Patrick. I'm trying to say that the Guardians have their work cut out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. For me, the Guardians, I feel like, and in a great way for a lot of people, it's again not my favorite part of the MCU. I do appreciate and like them, and I think it's funny. Jumps the shark though for me just a little bit, just ever so slightly. Yeah. Goes a little bit beyond what I want, and I think Thor rides exactly the wave that I'm interested in.
So well said, Patrick. I totally agree.
And then, of course, we have to mention the Screaming Goats. You know, we have to give them their props.
Patrick, I was dying. We had talked about Muppets Haunted Mansion. There was that great screaming goat in that as well. Disney's really having a screaming goat moment, aren't they?
They are. Screaming goats in general are having a really good moment this year.
They are a part of the culture, and we need to celebrate them. They should be celebrated. They deserve to be celebrated. Yeah, just another really fun, hilarious element added that it honestly never got tired for me. It could have easily have gotten tired, but I laughed every single time I heard them scream.
Well, they did that thing that I really love is that they do a joke and it's funny. They do it again and it's funny. They do it again the third time. It's that's usually the sweet spot is 3, and then 4 is not so funny, but then 5 is even more hilarious. You know what I mean? They did the joke so many times that they tricked us into it being super funny every single time.
And I think aside from the hilarious sound they were making, they did serve a useful element in the movie. They weren't just there to be funny. They actually served a purpose. And that made it even more funny was the fact that they were needed as a part of this journey. And they just happened to be screaming constantly.
Yeah, 100%. I believe in the comic book world, Thor does actually have 2 goats. I don't think they're screaming goats, obviously, though. So that was just sort of probably a Taika Waititi wink a little bit for the audience.
God bless Taika Waititi. I hope that he continues with this franchise, or at least kind of rounds out his involvement with one more film. 3 just seems like a perfect way for him to kind of complete his involvement with Thor.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board with that. Well, Adam, what do you say we wrap up with final thoughts on the movie? Tell me your final thoughts on Thor.
I loved it. I really absolutely loved it. I had such a blast watching this movie. I thought it was funny, and I thought it was so fast-paced and wonderful. I mean, it came in under 2 hours, Patrick, which for an MCU movie is tight. They kept it really on track and kept it moving quite nicely. I was really impressed with the entire cast, and I loved seeing Natalie Portman back in the fold, and I just loved seeing their relationship, Thor and Jane's relationship and her kind of involvement as the mighty Thor. It all really came together for me, and I thought this was a really good commentary on where we're at in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was fun to see Tessa Thompson as King and to see her kind of over it in a way. It's fun to see these characters, how far they've progressed, and it's fun to see them slightly disenchanted with the roles that they're presented or where they find themselves in their lives. It's an interesting layer that they're adding on now to these MCU movies.
Yeah, when they bring all these superheroes into the reality of Earth or whatever, and they sort of get annoyed by it, and they can do whatever they want, but they are choosing not to. Yeah, there's an interesting commentary behind all of that for sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I really loved this movie from beginning to end. I didn't really see anything that I was like, they could have done this better, other than the Voldemort-ness of it all. But forgivable for sure. It was, everything you said. It was a great movie. The inclusivity of it all. I'm excited to see them pushing that forward, especially in a hyper masculine world that is the superhero genre, basically, and sort of making it accessible for everybody and making it inclusive for everybody. It's really fun to see. It makes me very excited for what's coming for the MCU in the way that Doctor Strange did not make me excited for what's coming for the MCU. Yeah. This gave me a lot of hope for the Young Avengers that are absolutely coming our way. And I think in general, this is a movie that I would watch over and over again for sure. Yeah, I would love to see this in the theater again. In fact, I think I'm going to go with my brother. He's currently out of town, but when he gets back in town, I think we're going to go together. One thing I wanted to mention too was that I love that this was relatively contained in regards to the MCU. I mean, yes, we saw Guardians at the beginning, but this was really Thor and Jane's story, and there wasn't a lot of involvement from other Avengers characters coming in to help out. It was really just a fully Thor movie. Yeah, for sure. And they have that advantage with Thor, I think, because he operates in a whole different world and universe than any of the other characters that they can't access necessarily. And so, yeah, it gives them a good advantage, and it lets them encapsulate this into a true Thor storyline.
Well, Tweedles, we turn to you as we always do. We love to hear from you. Have you seen Thor Love and Thunder? Please share your thoughts with us. You can do so by reaching out to us on social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast.
Or send us those voice memos or emails at info@gaysdothed.com.
Let's get back to Thor's booty. Let's talk more about Thor's booty.
I'm so interested in how that even happens. How is that? How many squats a day, and how many of those goats are you eating to make that happen? You know?
So many goats were lost on set because he had to maintain his protein levels.
They were going to do it. They were like, for Thor? Yeah, I'm going
we
straight
sacrifice ourselves.
Hey, Adam.
Hey, Patrick.
It is time, my friend. It is time once again for some quick D-ness in our lives. Are you ready for this quick D?
I'm ready, Patrick. I'm ready.
Absolutely glad to hear it, Adam. We are, once again, for the 89th time in a row, doing Quick D Classic, where Adam and I ask each other a question we have not been privy to prior to recording and answer it off the cuff, off the gosh darn cuff.
But of course, that is how Quick D Classic plays out each and every single episode that we do it.
It does. It does indeed. Adam, would you like me to ask you a question first, or are you asking myself a question?
You're going to have to ask me your question first because I need some time. I need some time to prepare.
Fair enough. Adam, I believe it was on the last episode where I gave a recap on the new scene in the last scene of the Carousel of Progress. Some new outfits were created, some new looks.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you is, should they update some more scenes within the Carousel of Progress? What do you want to see them bring to life in those scenes?
I'm so glad you asked me this. And yes, they absolutely should. You know why, Patrick?
Because we want it.
That's right. Because we want it.
Great.
We do. We want it. Yeah.
Great.
So they should update some more scenes. You know what? This whole thing about being in the past is dumb. Like the past is stupid, Patrick. There's a reason the past is the past. And do you know why that is? It's because we've moved on. I don't care about 1900, okay? Like churning butter, like you're what? Like who cares, right? So we need to focus more on what is now and current. So we're removing all the scenes prior to the last show scene. Got it?
Wow, stripping it clean.
That's right. And instead of going into the past, we're going to stay in the present. We're going to focus on the now, and we're going to jump from celebrity home to celebrity home. It's Christmas Day, okay, still. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see the family as they are now, but then they're going to be like, I wonder what the Kardashians are up to. And the stage is going to rotate, and we're going to see the Kardashians celebrating Christmas.
I mean, this is an idea that you have and are talking about right now.
It's very true. Everything you're saying are facts.
We might have to update the title instead of the Carousel of Progress then.
Do you have any recommendations or suggestions?
I don't. What you're describing is the Carousel of Christmas Day this year.
Yeah. I mean, we'll workshop it. We'll figure it out.
Got it. The Carousel of Presents and Present.
Sure. Yeah, maybe the stage. Maybe the stage rotates again. We journey on from. It's kind of like a progressive dinner in a way, isn't it? We journey on from the Kardashians, and then who do we see? Whose house do we pop into? So happy you asked. Rihanna's.
Oh, fair enough. What's she up to these days?
She's smoking a joint, Patrick.
Oh.
She's smoking a joint.
Good for her.
Did she have her baby? She did, didn't she?
Who can say? Who can say, Adam? I have not thought about Rihanna in an embarrassingly long time.
Well, she's celebrating Christmas Day by smoking a joint with her baby.
God bless. God bless us, everyone.
And the stage rotates yet again. We say goodbye to Rihanna and her baby.
Okay. Yeah.
And we say hello to noted celebrity Kesha.
Oh. I'm nervous about what we might see in that scene. I don't know.
She's cooking a turkey.
Oh, great. Great. But instead of a turkey...
It's just a turkey.
Okay, great.
She's really a traditionalist when it comes to the holidays.
She's surprisingly low-key in this. I like it. I like knowing... So, they're just like us. They're just like us.
They are. They're just like us. Maybe that's what the title is. Carousel of Progress. What did you say? Presents to the present. Celebrities are just like us.
Mm-hmm. What a catchy title. I think it'll fit on many T-shirts. I like this.
This was basically Imagine Queering.
It kind of was. It went into a direction I didn't fully expect, and I'm really appreciating the Zoloft that you are ingesting by the fistful.
All right, Patrick, guess what? I have a question for you.
Fantastic. That's how this works.
Word on the street is, Patrick, rumor has it that the People Mover will return to Disneyland as part of the Tomorrowland overhaul.
What a rumor. What a great thing to look forward to. Moving some people.
Moving some people around. Patrick, give us an idea of what that new People Mover experience is going to be like in Disneyland.
Well, Adam, you're going to get in a little car, and it's going to move around Tomorrowland, giving you sights and some narration of what is available for you in Tomorrowland.
Good.
And drugs. Massive amounts of drugs. That will do it for this episode of Gaze Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gazedothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gaze Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. Continue the conversation after this episode on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast. Submit your questions or show ideas to info@gazedothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See ya real soon.